All right. So, hello, those of you that don't know me. My name's Jason Zeller, and I teach mostly the cybersecurity content at Fort Hays. I do teach the undergraduate Python course, which obviously most of you have come through, and we now have this new advanced programming in Python course. So, a couple different things with this course. One, it is going to be the first time it runs. You can see it in big bold letters up there at the top, which means there's a plan, there's a schedule. We hope to follow it. If we don't, and there's something come up and we say, look, this should be 2 weeks of content, not 1 week of content, we will adjust. It's built in for that. So there shouldn't be a problem in that realm. Syllabus is out there. We do meet here at 9 a.m. I am going to record all the class sessions. So if for some reason you miss something along the way, it's not a big deal. It'll be recorded and posted out there on Blackboard. If you're sick or something else and you want to just jump in the Zoom meeting, that's perfectly acceptable too. I don't beat you up on attendance or anything like that. Yeah. It is. So if you are in a section and it says not available, I kicked you into 1601 section. So even if you are on the on-campus section, it may show a VA section, jump in the VA. It's because they took 25 of my students, spread them out over 4 sections because we had to have seats available for undergraduate on campus, undergraduate virtual, graduate on campus, graduate virtual. If I update one thing in one shell, I got to go around and do it to all the shells. So I just shove everybody into one shell. Doesn't have an effect on your grade or anything else. It just makes sure that you guys are always getting the right material. Okay. So plans for this semester and what we're going to be going through. This week, we're just going to be doing a review of the Python basics, going through, what was a variable, what was that kind of stuff. Just we'll cover that mostly on Thursday as far as the basic stuff. And then we're going to jump right in and start next week with getting you guys some different IDE setup, some interactive development environments. So if you guys took the undergraduate course with me, we used IDLE, right? That was on purpose because it's generic. It works across every single platform. And for the basic programming we did then, it worked fine. But as you started to get to your midterm and final project, you realized this isn't so fine. It's kind of cumbersome to go search through large projects. There's no help. There's nothing else in there. That's where some of these other IDEs are going to come into play. So we'll talk a little bit about ones like PyCharm, Visual Studio, and we'll definitely get you set up on a GitHub account. So the way this class is going to work is your submission of any content, whether it be the mini projects or the final project that we work on, all of that's going to be submitted to GitHub. And then in Blackboard, you will actually just submit the link to your GitHub project. And that's by design. A lot of people, when they're hiring for Python engineers, when I was out in industry and hiring Python engineers, the first thing we did is we didn't care about their LinkedIn profile. We didn't care about anything else. We went to check to see if they had a GitHub program and if they actually submitted code out to the GitHub repository on what they did there. And a couple of things that accomplished. One, it allows us to see your code. Do you write cleanly? Do you actually comment your code? There's one reason why I stress that in the undergrad program. I'm going to stress it exactly in this class too. You have to comment your code, especially when you're in this realm. When you're out in industry, you may be there 1, 2, 3 years, but when the next person comes in to see your code, they should be able to read your code. And so commenting is huge. That was a hiring decision for a lot of my Python engineers is, did they comment their code? Simple as that. Because they can explain it, they can kind of move through it, but if they can't give it to somebody else and let them run with it, it's too many hands in the cookie jar, so to speak. So we'll get GitHub up and running. We'll integrate it. What's nice is GitHub integrates directly with PyCharm. I believe it integrates with your Visual Studio stuff if you're more of a Visual Studio person. So we'll work through all of that and get those integrated. I myself use PyCharm because us as academics, we get it for free. So it's usually a fairly expensive Python suite, but we get the professional version for free. All right. Then we'll jump back into object-oriented programming review. So cover what we covered at the very end of that first one, just to get you guys remembering what objects were, how we're going to use it. We'll deal a little bit with file organization, particularly when it comes to the GitHub side, and then start working with some APIs. So it's kind of what you did at the end of the semester. We're just ramping it up even quicker and faster on this side. Some of you were talking about NumPy and SciPy there before class. That's going to be what we do in week 4. So we're going to kind of do an introduction. We'll do a couple labs and some mini projects with that, and then we'll have our first quiz going on that. We're going to talk about data frames and using pandas in order to accomplish data frames and pulling in information. Week 6, we're going to work with Flask, which is kind of a mini web framework. It's really great for getting things up and running fast with a web framework in Python. You can build little mini web applications, work really, really well if you want to just get something quick up and running. Then you have the heavier hitters, which are going to be something like Django. There's lots of moving parts within Django. You're not going to be Django professionals by we're done, but you guys will get your first apps up and running. Make sure what they're like, understand what runs under the hood of Django. If you like Python and you like continuing to code in Python, Django is probably going to be your biggest framework that you'll deal with. One of the things that's going to set this class apart from what you would see in the computer science version of Advanced Python is we are going to teach web frameworks, and that for the GUI portion of things. I'm not going to teach you the system level GUI stuff because that's not what most people do with Python. It's just not. Today they will build things on the web framework so that it works on any platform. Doesn't matter whether you're Linux, Windows, doing it on a PC, doing it on a phone, doesn't matter, right? Today's GUIs are all based off web frameworks in some form or fashion. There's a time and need for the system level stuff, but for the most part of the students that are coming through this program, the web frameworks are really where it's at. So we'll go through Django, and then by week 9, we're going to do some dashboard visualizations for the Panda frames that we learned before, and we'll do things with Streamlit. So Streamlit, one of the big things I'll show during that one is stocks. So say you are monitoring your stock portfolios and it comes from a bunch of different places. You want to pull that information into one dashboard for all the stocks you're interested in. That's kind of what we will do during that week. And that's something I actually did during COVID and made some cash doing it that way. So the idea was to bring that project back and students would kind of understand what it's like to set up that kind of interface. We'll get into a mini project that deals with that along with the midterm. And then starting in week 11, we're going to have what's the offensive Python side. So really this is the cybersecurity side of what we're going to use for Python. So we're going to use Python to be able to do a bunch of different cybersecurity tactics. So we'll be setting up server ports, setting up backends for that. We'll do backend communication through Python. We'll start doing scripting and scanning vulnerabilities and things like that with Python. That kind of stuff is all in week 11. From there on out, from week 12 to week 16, you're working on your final project. So you'll notice there's a lot more time to work on this final project. It is going to be concentration specific, right? So if you're a cybersecurity student, I expect your project to be something cybersecurity focused. If you're computer science, if you are math majors, if you're an accounting major, etc., it should be something close to your concentration and specificity. So in the first week, you'll kind of get an outline of what you plan to do. We'll go through APIs that would help you accomplish whatever your goal is or what you're trying to go through your project. So whether it's TensorFlow or any of those kind of APIs or projects will help get you as much of the material as you want. Then you're going to have to pick one of the frameworks that we did up above. So that may be Flask, it may be Django, it may be Streamlit. There may be another one that we didn't talk about, but you should be able to at least pick from those 3 and figure out which one's the best one for your project. By week 15, we're doing debugs and submitting that up to GitHub. And in the last week, so week 16 is going to work a lot like we did in the 360 course, where I'm meeting with you one-on-one to go over your projects. Anybody got any questions on that timeline and plan? Okay, so you'll see in week 10, we just have a project and midterm exam listed there. That's kind of our buffer week. If we find that we needed more time on one of these sections up above, we can shift the schedule down, but it doesn't affect your final project. That's why that buffer week's kind of in there. As far as grading for this class, you're going to see that in the undergraduate section and pay attention to the undergraduate versus graduate. So if you are an undergrad in this class, make sure you follow that scale. If you're a graduate student, you follow this scale. In Blackboard, you'll notice like right now, there's nothing material-wise down here. That's going to pop up starting Thursday. So everything I record is going to go out into that session, just like we did with the 360 course. because I got such good feedback from students. They really liked that. As a matter of fact, I've already had students emailing me, are we going to get videos for 601? Yes, we will. We'll record those. You just won't have multiple copies because it's first time running. All right. Anybody have any questions on the syllabus side of things? Again, the schedule's tentative. If anything changes, I'll relay it out there via the announcements, and I'll make sure you guys have heads up as to something changing in there. All right. Next line down is going to be academic honesty. I got to throw this one in there because it's such a rampant issue in the 360 course. Don't be going out to Chegg and Course Hero and that kind of thing and copying answers out of there and put it in this course. Guess what? It's the first time course ran. There's nothing in Chegg and My Course Hero. So what does that tell me? If my stuff starts showing up in Chegg and My Course Hero, it's one of you 20-some students in this class, right? And don't be the goofballs is the term I'll use. Don't be the goofball that leaves your name on the assignment and then submits it to My Course Hero and Chegg. Please don't do that. And please don't submit that work up there. There's a lot of work that goes into those courses and all that kind of stuff. Yes, I know you get paid and everybody wants to get paid. I'd rather give you $1 not to do it than they give you $1 to do it. Okay. All right. On the academic honesty side, the only thing that's going to be relevant to this project is when you go to pick a project out, and don't grab something from the internet and call it your own. Can you go out and use the internet for resources? Absolutely. You're going to be doing that a lot more in this course than you ever did in the 360 course, because you're going to have to go explore your APIs. You're going to have to go read how people used it on the forums and Stack Exchange and all that. That stuff does not bother me. What bothers me is you take somebody else's GitHub project, clone it, and call it yours. That's a problem. All right. And given that they're supposed to be concentration specific, it should thwart that type of issue coming through there. But what that really means down to is if you're running behind and you feel like you got to cheat on whatever else it is, don't do it. Just email me. Most of you guys took me in 360, right? I'm pretty flexible on due dates, right? So just email me. I'm flexible on the due dates. That stuff doesn't bother me. I'll give you more time if it's the difference between you cheating and not cheating. Because this year, it's less than a 2-strike policy. If I catch it the first time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it in. Second time you immediately do something, you're out. It's a 0 for the course, and I report it to the academic board. I'm tired of it. It's getting bad because the students that actually do the work are getting hurt the most. And that's the part that really upsets me. Any questions on academic honesty? I hate that part, but it's gotten so bad since 2019 during COVID that I've had to fail graduating senior students because they were just blatantly copying things. They didn't even take the time to try to do it correctly if you're going to cheat. Not that I'm promoting the cheating. All right. Emailing issues. If you guys have any issues with your Python files, projects, etc., make sure you zip those up before you email them to me. Preferably for this class is that you're submitting everything up to your GitHub, and I can just check out whatever the latest revision of your GitHub is. And we'll go through that process once it's all set up. But if you need to email me anything, make sure you zip it because Outlook will block all Python files. So if it's in a zip file, it's fine. But if you try to email it directly, I'm going to send you an email back. Please submit it as a zip. I can't see it. All right. Zoom link. Again, we're here at 9 o'clock in this class. You can click on the Zoom link. If you guys are sick or anything else and you feel like you can't make it to class, you don't even have to email me on that. Just jump in the Zoom link. You're all adults now. That's the way I treat my classes is you guys are 18 plus years old. I'm not your mommy and daddies. If you want to come to class, great. If you don't, you get the grade that you get. So, all right. The recordings, I say they're going to be tried to submitted within an hour. I need to change that line. I cannot submit these within the hour after class. I have back-to-back classes until like 1:30, 1:30. See, I'm working with my schedules, right? I have hour-and-a-half classes now all the way till 1:30 today. So that means at 1:30 is when I'm going to go through and submit all these different recordings. All right. Anybody got any questions on the class as a whole, concerns in that realm? All right. So again, we're going to go through the basics and everything. The only thing I have today, if you guys don't already have it on your machine, is going ahead and setting up at least just the Python install of what we're going to go through. And again, this is going to get a little bit further when we talk about IDEs next week, but you at least have to have the main Python on there, right? So if you go to python.org, this will get you the basics of the Python that's in there. If you're not familiar with Python, even more from 360, there are various versions of Python. So what we're going to use to start in this class is Python 3.10 because that's the latest that's out there. However, when you start working with your projects and APIs and everything else, you may need to back rev back to 3.9, 3.8, that kind of thing. I don't want to see any Python 2 stuff. It should be Python 3x. But I totally understand if you're working on a project and you have to back rev to 3.9, makes complete sense. For example, if you're going to use a Django and you're going to set up a CMS and a bunch of other stuff, they require you to go back to Python 3.9. They just haven't updated it yet. So to get the latest version, you can see right here under download Python 10.6. And that's not the link I wanted. It was the download on the beginning. There we go, downloads, and then you can click on this one here. Now, this will work on whether you're Windows, Linux, Mac, whatever you need to pull in. Things can get a little tricky when you're working on Linux and Mac. It's not that it doesn't work, but installing things could compete with the underlying operating system. So just be careful when we start installing this stuff, you don't tank your underlying operating system. There again, it'll be much easier when we work with our IDEs because we'll be using virtual environments for all of that. So I'll show you what virtual environments, and we'll be using that because it's pretty much baked right into the IDEs for that side. So for this 3.10, when this first pops up, make sure you add 3.10 to your path. For most of you, that's okay. If you're on Linux or something else, you may not want to click that because that's going to override your default Python to run 3.10. You may not want that. So if you're Linux and Mac, don't click it. But if you're Windows, you should be able to click it with no issues. Go ahead and hit install. And that should get us the basics of Python back up and running. That will get us our IDE, which is idle. That's what we're going to show this week. Next week, we're going to step into the big guys. This virtual machine is what I'm running for this class on purpose so that everything is containerized in it. You guys do not have to run virtual machines and that kind of stuff for all this. You can run it native on your laptop if you want.
Will it get rid of our 3.9 or will it just add another?
It will add another version. So you can install 3.10, 3.9, 3.8, all of those in there. As a matter of fact, if I pull up idle on even my machine here, you're going to see I have 3.8, 3.9, 3.10. But when you go to execute files that were written for a certain version, you got to make sure you run that version of Python as you're pulling it up. Like I said, as we start to get through the projects and that kind of stuff, we may have to back rev to go back to another version. Okay, that's all set up. We can go ahead and disable the path limit, which just solves some issues. Close, and then to make sure it's working, you can do that with a Python, and we should see Python 3.10.6 up here at the top. That all works well. You can exit, pull out, and we should be able to have idle. Idle pops up. There we go. And we can start creating new files in there. So real short today, just making sure that you at least have Python up and running. That will allow us to get back through the Python basics that we're going to do on Thursday. I'm not going to harp a bunch of time on it, but there are students that are in 601 that did not take 360 because they're coming from the grad side. So I at least got to run through the basics and refresh them on what's going on with Python. All right. Anybody have any questions on the semester? I can tell you I look forward to all the projects. Like that's going to be my favorite thing this whole semester. And I encourage you to go as much overboard as you want kind of thing. So especially if you're comp sci students and you want to do this bigger project or something taken on that most people wouldn't tackle, completely fine with that. As a matter of fact, it's going to be fun because I'm going to help and like get you all the resources and I want to troubleshoot your code. And that's the kind of stuff I'm looking forward to this semester. That's why the final project is so big, is so that we can make sure that you have all the pieces of the puzzle coming through. So as weird as it sounds, this is the only class I'm super excited for because it's new. And I know that a lot of the students that are taking this are the ones that were doing the cool projects in 360, not the basic text adventure stories. They were doing the advanced, API stuff, which is where Python really lives and breathes. So I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. All right, I'm gonna stop this recording for the day.